Welcome to Queer and Decolonised. This is our first mini-sode dig in where we go a little deeper on last week's episode. I'm Sabah Choudrey.
And I'm Sharon Dhaliwal.
Now, one thing that's been on my mind since you told me the story of Shikhandi, and if you haven't heard of that yet, please go check out episode 1. Mm-hmm. Right now, what's been on my mind is the sexism, and I think we touched on it, but we didn't name it. I think I wanted to come back to it, but I didn't get a chance to. And what's interesting is that in South Asia, trans representation is not like universal. It's not homogenous. Like trans men, trans masculine people are mostly invisible, and trans women and trans femmes are hypervisible. There's a over-representation of trans women and trans femmes in South Asia and generally like the rest of the world.
True.
And yet there's such a huge stigma and prejudice and lots of discrimination against these populations, sometimes called Quadrocera, hetero communities, depending on where you are. And it's interesting because it wasn't always that way, you know? And what happened? Well, the clue's in the name of our podcast. Say it with me. We got colonised. That's right. Just as homophobia was an export of British colonialism, so was transphobia. And I want you to talk more about this. You've written about this on your platform, Burnt Rod D, which is a magazine and an online space, a radical South Asian platform for people like us to discuss identity and learn more about our histories. And it's, side note, it's actually pretty incredible. It was actually, I knew about it before I knew you, and I'm sure a few people on our listening to our podcast will know about it as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for existing, Burnt Rod D, and please tell us more about the export of transphobia in colonialism.
Okay. Big question. And luckily I did do a post on it on Burnt Rod D, so people can go to the post, have a little look. But I've also kind of like written it out here as well, just a little summary of what it is. But essentially it comes from the same rooted space as homophobia. But when white colonizers went around the world, one commonality was to impart their limited understanding on humans and in turn restrain indigenous people from their way of life. And they did this in many ways, but one main technique was by redefining male and female roles and putting it into a patriarchal framework. And it kind of aligned with their concept was so that it was aligned into a mainstream cultural and societal norm. So it was just like this one kind of like almost one river, you know, there couldn't be any other idea of what that could look like. So it was just one, and it was a norm. So it was their idea of what gender is.
Oh my God, I'm still stuck on the fact that you just described this as a river. That's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. But it was also indoctrinated through Christianity, but then obviously furthered through colonialization after that. But when you think of indigenous folks, you have to remember that many, not all, but many practice self-expression that aligned with nature. And since nature is without a binary, so were they. So like, for example, you can't say nature exists with like a male and female binary because it's factually incorrect and a Western concept.
Yeah.
So by saying binaries are real, you're saying nature is unnatural. I guess, like, you know, this is kind of like, you know, it's painting indigenous cultures in one brush as well. We have to say that, you know, many argue that it isn't just a Western concept. And it is true that many cultures have had gender binaries and they have looked different, but they have had gender binaries. But they just haven't had it in the strict gendered way that Europeans came and then forced onto different lands, like, for example, India. And that's what we see as now, what has led to like the normalized transphobia we now see. It comes from that. It comes from that strict gender norm that they've kind of like inflicted onto indigenous cultures. In the 17th and 18th century, with what they coined as the Enlightenment, the British categorized people with sex and race. And they created a hierarchy. Sorry, they created a hierarchy of race, and they put themselves on top.
How interesting. You create a hierarchy and somehow you're the one who ends up like being the best.
Oh, God, who would have thought? It's that easy.
Not my fault. It's just what the structure says.
It's just what the structure says. It's also like, it's like they just went around and they were just like, oh, this is something that we're going to pull out of thin air. We're going to make this thing and everyone has to listen to us now. Like there's no argument. There's no kind of like debate on this. It's like, this is final. And so much so that this is final to this very day. Like no one's doing enough to like stop this structure from existing, because that structure that existed in the 17th and 18th century that they put together from colonialism is what we live in now. Like none of that has changed, and that's like the most messed up thing. It's like some dudes basically went around and were just like, oh, we want to be the most superior people, so this is what's going to happen, and everyone now is still living it.
And that's why it's so important that we name it. We name colonialism, imperialism, and white supremacy.
Absolutely. But the thing is like their scientific understanding on humans is incomplete and incorrect. Going back to the original point, indigenous cultures had different ideas of gender, and that existed in nature, and nature is science.
Yeah.
You know, so it's this kind of like pull away from nature and pull away from the natural that these gender binaries are part of. But that's where white supremacy comes to play. And stops us from elevating. So that's kind of the history on how colonialism affects indigenous communities with gender.
Thank you for that. I feel like that should have definitely been on a megasode. That was like a lot of information.
It is. I think it is a lot of information, but I feel like it should be summarized in almost everything that we talk about.
Yeah, actually, yeah. One thing I also wanted to mention in this conversation are the laws that the British Empire put in when they colonized South Asia, namely the ones criminalizing homosexuality, any same-sex acts, anything around gender fluidity and expression of being trans, which changed, like that was not how things were operating, but it had such a massive impact on our culture, on South Asian culture and attitudes and beliefs, and thus how society operated in the way that you know exactly how you're saying how British built these binaries. That, you know, that's why me and you, our generation, grow up thinking, oh, like, yeah, India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, like they're so homophobic, they're so transphobic, like, and actually no, they're not. It was the British who came and put that in there, which is why I like talking about it as an export of colonialism. Like it wasn't there.
Just to say that, like, you're right, it wasn't there. But, like, it wasn't there in this way. It did exist in a different way. Like, all kinds of homophobia and transphobia existed before colonialism. But not in the way that we live it now.
Yeah, you mean, like, it wasn't a utopia.
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't a utopia. Discrimination happens all the time. But, you know, it's very different when it's kind of brought on by someone who thinks they're a superior race, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Why I bring this up is because when I came out as transmasculine, I was accepted by my dad, my mum, my family here, my family in Pakistan. And when I went over there, back home, I quickly took on the role of the boys, of the man in the family, which was, you know, alien to me, which is hard for me. And in my village where we're from, you know, gender is very binary, you know, it's like the roles that men, boys, women, girls do is very rigid. And I had to erase all of my femininity, and which is really weird because it's like I don't know what they perceive as feminine and masculine in me. So it's like I'm having to like rub out all these parts of who I am and shrink myself in a way that I'm like, is this working? Like, is this what I need to hide? Like, and it's not true to who I am, you know. I love being feminine. I love my femininity now, and I think, actually, in fact, I think I'm more comfortable with being feminine now than when I was as a girl, because I'm more comfortable with who I am. But that's another story. So in Pakistan, in the village, you know, it's like these parts of myself that could have been seen as like being feminine or because Sabah used to be a girl could just be put down to me being the weird British cousin. I'm sure I'm not the only one who just is like, I just can't fit in. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna.
I think that's a shared experience, 100%. Yeah.
Like my soft voice, my gentle gait, the way even my sister and I do everything together. The way I don't wear my clothes like the other men do, or want to wear these particular pieces of accessories or whatever it is. And I think because of trans misogyny, if I had... Oh, I don't know if this is problematic to say. I think because of trans misogyny, if I had come out as a trans woman, the response may have been very different. And I'm saying I think this might be problematic because I don't know the experiences of trans women and trans feminine people. So that's why I'm saying, call me out. Tell me if this is really inappropriate. I'm just saying I am aware that, for example, my uncle who does drag... and he's done that since he was a child. He's in his 60s now. He's a granddad. He's performed at Middlesex Pride.
We love him at Middlesex Pride.
He's amazing. And our family also love him. However, he's also been ostracized. He's been ostracized by certain family members very quietly. And certain people... There are some things that aren't spoken about him. And that's a known thing, femininity still is not valued in our culture when it isn't seen as belonging on a very set woman. So I think this is my own internalized isms and thoughts, and I'm aware that this might be coming from a place of my own internalized transphobia. When I think... If I was to quote unquote choose femininity, not that you choose your gender and your expression in that way, but I feel like there would be a question of why would you quote unquote choose to be a woman when you could be a man and reap the rewards of the patriarchy? So I think for myself, that is a lot of the reason why I am accepted in Pakistan, in the village, because why wouldn't I want to be a man in that society where men are
revered? And I guess, you are now superior, essentially.
Yeah.
You have all the privilege now and all that. So there's that concept that comes with it.
Yeah. Welcome to choices. Welcome to having a voice. Welcome to any room you want to be in. Welcome to praying in the masjid. Good for you. And it's hard because that's part of the acceptance, and I want the acceptance, but I can't untangle what is acceptance from a place of love and acceptance from a place of being in a superior position, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, that's my own journey to work out. And actually that's not the problem. The problem is the system that we are all under, that operates around us, that we benefit from in some way. The system that runs on the currency of masculinity, that only benefits men. That's the problem. So I guess I just want to wrap up by saying, let's protect and affirm and support and love and celebrate South Asian trans women, trans feminine people who are gender fluid, beyond the binary. Educate yourselves on these stories, these experiences, these lives, these histories. It's so important. The more we're aware of the system that we're operating under, the more we can figure out how to take it apart, how to dismantle it, how to manipulate it, how to navigate it, how to dream up something new.
Yeah, so there's lots of things for us to do to support trans people at the moment, especially in India. In India right now, what we need to talk about is the Transgender Amendment Bill 2026 and talk about what's happening there. Because when we understand that, then we know how to support our people out there. Okay, so on the 13th of March, a Union Social Justice and Empowerment Minister, Virendra Kumar, proposed significant changes to the existing Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019. A cat just woke up. Perfect timing. So the existing act defined a transgender person in a broad sense. So it included trans men, trans women, persons with intersex variations, genderqueer individuals. It covered a whole group of people. It didn't keep anyone out, essentially. But this new transgender bill amendment erases trans men, erases trans women who aren't Ginar, Hijra, Aravani or Jogda, and it erases non-binary people and others who fall outside this these newly narrowed categories that they've formed. So what happened is the government proposed to remove the right of self-perceived gender identity, which forces medicalization, requires clinical tests, and excludes non-binary gender fluid people who have not undergone surgery. And that means people will suffer, and especially those who can't afford surgery, and especially trans men who find it difficult to access high-risk bottom surgery. And then things like medical bias and caste inequality and power and wealth inequality all come into play here as well. So the important thing to note here is that nobody in the community actually asked for this. This was all brought in by a straight cis man, and everything that's happened since then has happened because a cis straight man has said so.
Sadly, there's no surprises there.
Yeah, I know. And unfortunately, the bill has now passed. But the fight hasn't stopped. There's still protests, public meetings. People are calling for the government to withdraw the bill. There's still so much happening there, and so many people that are still so active in that space. And it is led by trans women. And that is what we see in our histories as well. Like trans women lead these spaces, don't they? Mm-hmm. And so we need to stand with India's trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming community to be able to raise their voices. It feels like sometimes when you are saying something and no one else is joining in with you, it makes you kind of wonder how much people care about you. And we need to show them that we care about them and their voices are important and their lives are important. So we need to make sure we're talking about it. We need to make sure that we're following these people, we're sharing their stories. And so I want everyone to just engage with them, interact with them, and also go to a protest around here as well that happen, or talks that happen around here about this. So you get to learn more, but you also get to pass on the information as well. And a few people you can follow are Grace, Banu, Debbie Das, Rayyan. They're 3 trans women who are leading a lot of these discussions. And there's other accounts such as Against Trans Bill, Reject Trans Bill 2026, and Yes, We Exist India. We'll put the names in the notes so you'll be able to find them and follow them yourself. Woo! But there's so many voices out there that you can go find and just be a big part of this story as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Sharon. And thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.